Hey everyone, welcome back to another guide video. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to download and go through this guide. In this video and guide, we will be going over different ways to temperature check salaries in mainly Central and Eastern Europe, and then also Latin America. My name is Benjamin Marone. I'm the founder of Zaboda. Let's get into it. So before we put in any job descriptions or job postings out onto the World Wide Web, we need to make sure that the salary is transparent and actually thought about. Before we even create any of these job descriptions, we need to start thinking, okay, how much can we actually afford to spend on a quality contractor, a quality global team member? We don't want to price it so high that we go out of business and there's no margin. It doesn't make economic sense. We also don't want to cheap out and then get someone who isn't skilled enough to take care of what we need to be done. We mainly hire from Latin America and then also Central and Eastern Europe due to the high skill level, English level, and still the affordability as well. This guide will go over two main different types of ways to temperature check salaries. So let's jump into it. So why Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and Latin America? The hiring landscape overall is extremely attractive due to the markets coming up economically. So Latin America, especially Argentina, in light of recent political and economic standpoints, that country has been on the rise for talent, extremely educated workforce, extremely talented individuals, and it's still affordable to hire from there. The same can be said about Central and Eastern Europe. We like to hire from mainly Poland, Serbia, and then also Ukraine. Poland right now is very prosperous. Each day I see more and more international companies coming into Poland. There's a big list of them, and I'll go over them here in this second paragraph. And for the last year, year and a half, we've mainly focused on these areas. We've been very, very pleased with the level of talent. Our clients have also been extremely pleased as well. The large companies that are hiring out of here are Accenture, Stryker, McKinsey and Co. We have Shell, we have CBRE. There's a lot of different industries that are hiring from these areas because they understand the value of outsourcing and hiring globally. We don't want to hire from a place where it's unstable. We want to hire from a place that is pretty solid and has good infrastructure. So they have good power, they have good access to infrastructure. The reason we don't hire in many developed or developing nations across the globe, primarily, let's say the Philippines, India, South Africa, some of these places, is because of the infrastructure problems. In the Philippines, you have typhoons for 3, 4 months out of the year. And so the actual uptime is pretty low. We have staff from there in the very beginning. I was testing it out instead of my own business. And I realized, hey, this just isn't the level of quality and uptime that we need. There are exceptions to that. State there's a reason we hire from where we hire. Certain locations have more of an industry specific focus. So let's say you're looking at Ukraine, you're looking at Eastern Europe. This region of the world is renowned for their IT skill and developer skill. It's a place where many major companies have outsourced their operations for years now, decades now. And so it's definitely a place that's very good for development and technology. It's a good tech hub. As far as Latin America, what we find sales focused roles, customer support facing roles, client specialist roles, call center roles. Latin America is awesome for that because the level of English is very, very strong, spoken wise, and there's very, very slight accents. It matters when you're calling into the breadbasket of the US or the center of the US. If someone can't understand the other person on the end of the line, they're not going to be able to do a good job in that position. So we have to take that into mind when we're making a hire. So Latin America is that main hub for things client facing. We find back end operational talent is best in Central and Eastern Europe. Comparison of salaries across different roles and industries. So you need to keep in mind just because you heard a quote from a friend on how much they're saving with their virtual assistant or their executive assistant in some random country does not mean that is the norm, does not mean that it is the standard, right? Wages, minimum wages, different benefits, different structures, they fluctuate in these different companies. It's not America, it's not so cut and dry. And so different roles will have very different compensations. An executive assistant and a developer, they're both very, very important, but in different ways. The executive assistant is going to be compensated much less than someone specialized like a developer. Developers, they're earning significant amount of money for their local market, but when you compare to hiring a dev in the US where it's in the low six figures, here paying 5, 6K a month to someone is much more attractive than compared to paying someone low to mid six figures in the US. An executive assistant here, very similar to the US, you wouldn't expect an executive assistant to be paid as much as a developer. Executive assistants are still very, very important, but they're important and specialized in their own way. Industries. So going into industries, someone in a marketing industry or a marketing agency with that type of background, they're a little bit differently priced than someone who has a finance background. We have financial firms come to us. They need a certain level of expertise. They need a certain level of confidentiality. They need a certain level of education and degrees and certifications that are found in the finance industry. Someone with that level of certification is going to be more expensive than someone who works in smaller startups, who works in marketing agencies and internet companies across the globe. This is something that's mindful to keep in focus and mindful to keep notice of. We also, when we're searching, we need to keep in mind that the best way to mitigate security risk is by hiring someone who's already been in a similar role, right? So if you hire someone who has worked for JP Morgan Chase and they're working for your financial firm in Washington State, they have passed JP Morgan Chase's technical vetting and background checks. That person is much, much less likely to leak client data or anything like that. Any of those fears that you have about outsourcing, those are much, much less when you hire someone who's already been in the niche. Where do we check salaries? So there's a lot of different methods that we utilize for checking salaries. It really depends on the country. It depends on the contacts we have there. It depends on the relationships my company has there and then the different sites and different ways that we can check salaries. But I wanted to make this guide actionable for you where you could check in both regions. So Ukraine, I'll go over first. Here's a link to the site, DOUUA. Now you have to translate it to English, right? In Google Chrome, you'll be able to do this. Go to salaries, right? Now we choose what role, and some of them are very limited, especially the data that is reported. But for an IT role, for a development role, there's a lot of different data on this, and it's pretty accurate. So let's say I want someone who is a junior software engineer. I want them to have advanced level English or higher. Say they have 1 to 3 years, they're on that junior side of things. See median salary, 953, right? So pretty solid there. If we look at someone who is let's say, business analyst or BI analyst instead, we'll see 1,850. Now, this salary checking method for Ukraine, I find is pretty accurate. It's very solid for sure. It changes a little bit as we go into Eastern Europe and Poland, let's say Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, some of those more Balkan regions, it changes. This is not going to be as relevant, but for technical talent hiring from Ukraine, this is a great way to check or temperature check salaries. Now, when we go focus on Latin America, and there's actually a how-to step-by-step on how exactly to do what I just showed you in the guide on the Ukraine side. Latin America, what we do is we go to LinkedIn. Now, Latin America, it's a little bit harder with salary and data aggregations. A lot of them are very off. But what I like to do is I like to test the market and see what other people are hiring their talent for. For example, we see this. We see that this person offers a salary of 1,050 per month. I see that as a little bit lower, especially for a place like Argentina. Uh, Argentina is definitely very developed, and the cost and the wages are on the rise, but rightfully so. The talent's very, very strong. 1,000 is not going to get you an insane amount of skill in Argentina and some of these other places, maybe like Bolivia, Brazil, for sure. But we mainly focus on Argentina. It's been kind of our favorite place to source from in Latin America because of the skill level. I think paying a few $100s a month more for that top-notch skill is important. So we see someone paying, a thousand per month. And how you get to this is on LinkedIn. You can just search executive assistant and select the jobs tab, and then this will pull up the jobs and put in the location, and it'll pull up the relevant ones, right? So let's look for this one. We don't see any types of job or the paid posting or compensation. For this, same thing. This is a similar one. See 1,050. It's the same listing as is up here. When creating your job descriptions, it's actually best to put the salary in there. It makes it a lot simpler, saves time on both ends. 1,300 to 1,500, that is something that is pretty accurate. This is something that would get you some solid talent inside of Latin America. 1,300 to 1,500 is a great range for that. When we go back into the guide, there is that step-by-step there for what I just showed you on LinkedIn. Here's some tips for attracting top talent. So customize the benefits, offer paid vacation, sick leave, bonuses. Those types of things are going to help you with attracting some of the top talent. Really depends the role you're hiring for, what the bonuses and benefits should be. If you're hiring for a sort of sales position, you want to have a commission and base structure. You want to attract people who are very focused on getting results. You want people who are competitive and champions in your sales department. Someone who is an A player in the sales department is not going to want to have a full base job, right? And so that's something to keep in mind is be creative with some of the compensation and some of the benefits that can be specific to your company and your culture about how you want to motivate people on the financial side of things and the benefits side of things. I already mentioned keeping the job description pretty clear and having the compensation actually listed in the job description. It saves a lot of times or a lot of time. You don't want to hop on an interview with someone where they're expecting $3,000 a month and you say, hey, no, we're paying 1,600. You don't want to have a scenario like that, but you also don't want to attract a bunch of just applicants all across the board who may not even speak English just because they see a really high salary, right? So it's important to kind of temperature check before jumping into this hiring process or actually posting for applicants. Pay above market rates. You don't want to just hire someone just because they're cheap. You're going to pay in other ways if they are a cheap employee or a cheap internet worker, right? You don't want to have to suffer on quality. You don't want to have to go do things again yourself, especially if you're a solo founder or growing company owner, founder. You don't want to have to go repair things or have your upper management repair things. That really just nullifies the entire reason of hiring overseas and hiring in general if you're having to just double check everything. For case studies of successful hiring in these regions, we have Sales Momentum. They saved over $45,000 annually because they hired Anna from Ukraine. Here is their case study here. And then Duckweed Media, Joe, he actually runs a paid media firm and they saved $22,000 a year by hiring a sales rep. It's a part-time sales rep. So that's why that figure is a little bit lower. If it was full time, it'd be up to that $44,000 mark. You may be asking how we can help at Zibota. So what we do is we're going to locate, vet, and interview the talent to make sure that you're actually successful and get the fit that you need. We have other guides as well, so please download the interview guide that's going to show you how to run a comprehensive interview and the top locations to hire from guide. It's going to uncover those talent hotspots across the globe, some that have been mentioned in this video and some that haven't. If you need help with international payroll and compliance, we've used tons of different companies for this. We even had it internally at our company as well and managed it. Our favorite solution for this has been Deal. They're wonderful. They're very, very cheap and very good at what they do. If you want to check them out, there's a link to them there. If you want help discovering the best global talent, please book a call below. We'll be happy to chat and assist you in any way that we can. Thanks.